Good morning. My name is Evgeny Shibeka. I'm representing the ITC DGN Special Interest Group. A decision to create the DGN SIG was taken on 12th of June on 2013. The project was kickstarted by Carlson Software as the service customers who used both DWG and DGN files. Unlike DWG, which has many different native editors, currently MicroStation is the only tool that can edit and save DGN files. Carlson users already had tools for converting between DGN and DWG, but content could be lost during conversion, and user would rather have the ability to edit DGN files directly. The perfect solution would be to create a fully functional DGN editor that would allow user to run Carlson solution for DWG and DGN, giving the customer a familiar user interface for both file types. Our work is based on DGN libraries provided by ODA. So ODDG and ODDB libraries use the same geometry and base classes. This allows us to reuse a lot of existing code in our DGN editor. For example, DWG and DGN shares graphics, settings, UI, state machine, session system variables, selection core, grip manager, snap manager, etc. At the inception of this project, our group was to evaluate possibilities. Let me just explain. Here's the milestones which we working, and this is the first milestone. And so the ODA DGN libraries were available to write DGN files, but no company was using them to create a DGN editor. Although we use the DGN libraries to display DGN underlays in IntelliCAD, we had no idea how complete the libraries were for editing, and if we could integrate them into IntelliCAD to allow native editing for both DWG and DGN files. The project was broken down into phases or milestones so that we could add value to it as quickly as possible. For example, there could be value in developing a simple viewer for DGN files. During the next phase, simple markup for DGN files, we're focusing on enable users. Oops. Sorry. We're focusing on enabling user to open DGN files, pan and zoom, add revision clouds, text comments, and receive comments back in the original files. If we could create a simple markup tool for DGN, that could be a proof of concept that would open more possibilities and push us to further explore new milestones. There is a lot of complexity in the basic editing feature, but soon we had entity creation, entity editing, snap, grip, selection, pan, and zoom, highlighting, and other critical features working. In additional portion of Lisp and SDS APIs were working, and we continue to enable more. Now we have a proof of concept and a framework and which we can enable entity creation for all entity types and all editing tools, as well as support for all the Lisp and SDS APIs. The full set of DGN APIs are already working internally for DGN 2. Of course, a lot of work still remains, and we have a small team of 3 developers working on implementation a full native DGN editor. Now we are completing milestone 5. We have already implemented some complex editing commands like trim, extend, fillet, boundary, and we continue increasing the number of supported editing commands. So now we're here. And actually, we have already made some changes that were planned for milestone 7. So it's far away. We have already changed IRIX API to get an access to DGN database. This rush was due to the 9.0 release, which is major release, and changes in API. If you might know, the changes in API are not allowed in later and maintenance releases. So the next one. Here you can see the commands that are already implemented. And during the second part of my presentation, we will try some of them. Although we developed DGN support in the same application, of course, DGN and DWG have differences in some cases. Similar functionality in DWG and DGN uses different names or terminology. For example, layers and levels, blocks and cell, UCS, and the auxiliary coordinate system, etc. Our goal is to make DGN editor similar to DWG editing, so we try to keep a familiar user interface for DWG users. We decided to accept DWG terminology whenever possible in our editor. Concerning fundamental differences in DWG and DGN database, there is no simple and clear solution. We had to overcome difficulties to build DGN editor in line with our conception. For example, the DGN format doesn't have the XF codes or any analogs of at all. We implemented a wrapper that emulates the XF codes for DGN objects. The result is an opportunity to support AutoLisp and SDS-ResBuf. A polyline in DWG is a list of, another example is a polyline. A polyline in DWG is a list of vertices with end start points and bulges, while the DGN smart line is a set of other objects, lines, arcs, etc., liner objects. This creates differences in implementation, but we tried to offset these differences for the end users. DGN objects, unlike DWG objects, have 2D and 3D versions. For example, ODDG line 2D and ODDG line 3D. And we have to take this into account while implementing commands. DGN formats support some system variables, but in most cases they are not same as for DWG. For example, a DGN database has no cellular system variable, and we have to create a mechanism for writing, reading DWG sysvar into the DGN's database. The opposite situations happening when Carlson asked us to support the DGN-specific feature, workset, workspace. This is a microstation feature that allows a group of architects to work together using the same settings, same layers, blocks, line types, text styles, etc. The feature is still under investigation, but we have an idea of how to support it in IntelliCAD. I'd like to demonstrate it in the second part of my presentation. So, the ability to automate process is very important in CAD system. So we took the DWG model and put it on the DGN formats. At the moment, we have already supported running script, Lisp, and SDS for DGN. we extended the API to support DGN objects in IntelliCAD 9. This will open support for IRX. Here's the list. After having completed milestone 4, was calculated that more than 80% of Lisp functions are supported by our DGN mod. Currently, we do not support 7 and haven't tested 10 of Lisp functions. As for SDS, they haven't been deeply researched yet. Only basic functions are enabled, and right now we have 20% of them working, and remaining functions have untested status. To date, our SIG has implemented 32% of creation commands, and 49 of overall commands are available for DGN. The calculations are made in comparison with DWG commands. Here is an example of ribbon interface. I will show it in practical. The same, will show you the same in the practical part. You can see that this is usual ribbon for DWG, and this is how it looks like for DGN files. You can see it's changed. Here is another workspace. Here we are. So maybe I just go to the practical part, and now and later I would like so. Here is a DGN 9 Pro version, and let's open the DGN files. Let me just quick explain what we mean native editor. We have an option how we have a few ways how we can implement DGN support, how we can implement editor in IntelliCAD. Because when we started, we already have, I mean, it could be other way to implement this. Because when we started, we have already implemented DGN import and DGN export commands. Okay? And the first my question was, why we just don't use the same code from DGN import and DGN export and converted it on a fly and save it back? Why we just don't do it? It's much more simple. We have not to change IntelliCAD core. We had not to change selection mechanism and other stuff. And, but Carlson says, no, we should implement it native. It should be open native, no conversion. And looking, and now it's quite, let's say, it was a right decision because the first problem, you always lose something during conversion. It's impossible to create a perfect conversion. Even if we implemented all details, it's still impossible because just let me show you one example. The polyline, what's the polyline in DWG? In DWG, the polyline is vertices and bulges. simply stricken. It's a set of vertices and add bulges. And it gave us already line and arc segments. In DGN is much more complicated, is an object that contain other linear objects. And this object can be, for example, a spline or more complicated linear objects. And when you convert in them, it's impossible to convert to polyline without losing data, okay? For example, AutoCAD convert this line like block, but probably you don't want to see the line is block. For you, it's a polyline, and when you convert it back, it became a polyline. It became a block. So, I mean, it's impossible to create the solution when you import work like it's with WG and export back. So the native editor means that we open DGN database inside IntelliCAD and work and edit it as DGN database. So this is the DGN file. We open it. You can see that ribbon automatically changed it to DGN markup workspace. And here's the DGN ribbon panel with command which we are implemented. Here's the line, polylines, circles, arcs. You can see move, copy, rotate, trim, fillet, etc. Here's a more complicated drawing feature, edit feature, entity snapping, line types, example. Okay. So let's try to do something interesting. Let's suppose we have to continue these lines here. I can see there is no streets here. And let's suppose we want to continue it. We can enable entity snap. Let's suppose we need perpendicular entity snap. And we select the line and extend it by grip. And oops, you see the perpendicular snap marker is shown. And I just up. So here we get the line. Do the same with the next. Okay. Let's draw. By the way, here you can see the entity properties, which we recently implemented entity properties for DGN. And if I select something, you can see this line 2D object, two-dimensional object. You can see here properties, and we can change it. I show it later. So let's try to draw something new. Here's a layer. just make a note which layer we need. Okay, and draw a polyline. Don't need perpendicular, and we like something like this. Oops. And again. We can copy-paste objects as usual. Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. Okay, and again, we can change the text using entity properties. For example, it will be A, and this. Another way we can change the text is a TD-edit command, recently implemented. Here we are. Let's suppose for our drawing plan, we have a satellite image, and we want to attach it. And use it as a base. Here we are. And let's draw some streets. For example, let's suppose it's a street. Streets are eye lines. Okay. So switch to the streets, and let's try to draw something. Actually, nobody vectorize maps something like this, but just for example. Draw arcs, again draw lines. And again, and yet another one. Something like this. Okay. So let's suppose we need to draw the river. You can see the river in the satellite image. We create a special separate layer, call them river. River is usually blue. By the way, I'm talking in that part of my presentation. I talk about differences. It is another differences from DWG is colors, and colors a little bit different because DWG has only one built-in color palette. When DGN default palette is different from DGN default palette is different from DWG, and an additional each DGN file can contain its own color palettes. It's important. You have to keep attention in Lisp scripts. Just keep in mind that colors might be different. Okay. Let's do the reverse the blue and make it some weight for it. I show it later. Okay. No, we don't need street, we need river. Okay, something like this, and another, draw real quick, another part. Okay, let's enable align weight. It looks like, now it looks more pretty, and now we don't need raster image anymore. What we can do? We select raster image, and you can see we also accidentally select other objects. So we just select raster image from the property panel. Okay, and now we need a special layer called the raster. Okay, and again. By the way, we can try a new feature with the tree view, and it's worked also for DGN. And we change layer to the river only for the raster image, or not the river. What I'm saying, raster. Okay. So again, now it is a raster, and now we switch off. Voila. You know, and we have the streets and the river here. Okay. Let's try some automation. Let's take an empty DWG file and another one. Another one DGN file. I have a script here, and so this is stadium for DGN, and the same, exactly the same file for DWG. And you can see this drawing the same. if we look at the file, you see here is a layer command, rectangle. I don't know if you see, probably not. You can see it. It's better. So you can see here we use layer command, rectangle, zoom, offset, line, circle, copy command, arc command, fillet, hatch command is recently implemented hatch. Okay, let's back to IntelliCAD and try something else. So try the DCL dialogues. Type SDK. You can see it is a DGN file, and DCL dialog works for DGN. Here we are, and do the same in the DWG. Again, the same file, SDK. Okay. Here we are, and let's try the SDS. Here, an SDS example. I don't know. Maybe you can see the lines here. Is a Lisp file, and this is the DLL. The first one is the DLL. The second is Lisp, and so the first is the SDS application example. Load it. And type commands to execute. Here we are. And again, the same for DGN. Okay. Regarding, I talked on the first part on my presentation about Lisp and SDS. I suppose SDS in pretty good condition. At least everything we implemented for Lisp should work for SDS. It's hard to test. It has untested status just because it's hard to test. You know, it needs more efforts to write scripts for SDS. But I believe it's a pretty good condition, and you can use it. Another thing, what I can show you. So about sysvars, maybe. What is the gray layers I show a little bit later. Now we just create an example layer, L1, and this is sysvars for DGN. Now you can see the C layer. I don't know, maybe you don't see, but this is C layer sysvars, and this is its default value called default. And this is because, you know, the default layer in the DWG is usually 0, called 0. And default layer in DGN usually called default. So let's select the layer we created. Just to make it more interesting. Let's select another color. So, see layer, and here we are. We change current layer from the command line, and you can see it's change combo box, layers combo box, change it in a ribbon, and its color, change it in a color combo box. So seems it works. Of course, DGN and DWG has some differences in Lisp, of course, and sometimes we need to know what drawing type we have, and for this we have sysvars, call it drawing type. So for DGN, its value is 2. And if we now create a new DWG file, type drawing type, drawing type. So for DWG, its value is 1. Also, you can use this sysvars for situation. When no drawing is open, drawing type. So now it's 0. Okay. What else I have? About microstation feature, workspace, workset, that we under investigation, and investigate it. Simply speaking, workspace and workset and microstation is environment for the users. Yes, if you switch workspace, workset, it switch you layers available layers and available line types, styles, etc. So we don't have some dialog that switch workspace, but we now integrate it some integrated layer support for workspaces and line types. It's also a workspace feature. Now you can see the gray layers. What these layers is? This is DGN lib file, which already contained prepared layers, and you can just use one of them if you need. For example, this one, you just click. This is used column, and you just clicked, and this layer copied into your drawing log. And so make it default. So let's try to, and another feature is a line type, which you can load also from the DGN lib, but also from the special RSC file is a binary, DGN binary line type format. And now we Here we are. Let's select this one. And for RSC, we have two options. We can just copy this line type in our drawing, or we can create a reference to it. Let's create a reference. Okay. And now select new line type and set it for, here we are. How you can control these levels and line types. This is standard path files dialog. And you can put DGN lib files with your layers here, provided directory here for your layers. And I guess should be another one for line types. Yeah, this is another part for line types. Okay. I guess this is all I want you to show. Any questions? Okay.